GERO 200. How you guys doing? All right, so this is Sunday. This is June 13th, 2021, and so we're gonna continue on with our mission. Okay. I apologize. Let me just go ahead and go into student view right here. All right. So it looks just like what you got going on. All right. So of course, the heads up. You have a midterm exam that opens today, and when you click on it right here, you see that we have laid out the information. All right, open note, open book. You can go into the archive discussions if needed. Julia has set out a study guide. Okay, it's the same format. It's just 60 multiple choice questions. Many of the same questions you've had already. We draw from a pool, obviously. So so the quiz of 5 questions may be drawn from a pool of 20, and so sometimes it'll be the same, sometimes they'll be different. You have all the way until next Saturday to do this, but just remember that once you open, you have to start. You have 2 hours. Okay, you can't go back in and do the exam bit by bit. Okay, you got to go in and you got to do it. Okay, so have everything all set up so you're ready to rock. Open up, multiple windows within the same browsers. You can go back and forth. Okay, if you have DSP, Student Program Accommodations Letter, please get it to Julia and she'll set you up accordingly in terms of the time you have on the exam. Alrighty, so like I said, it's open right now. Choose a time and dedicate yourself to it. And by the way, you guys have this thing wired. Don't worry about it. Okay, you're going to do really, really well in the exam. All right, so yeah. That being said, let's go on to the next phase of the course. Okay, I've been promising this all along. These are for this is a survey course. We have lots and lots of different professions in terms of who you guys are going to be. I could have called it your majors, but you guys are beyond that. You guys, many of you are rocking and rolling, getting jobs, and you've already chosen a professional track. And so we, basically set everything up right here, both globally and in our country, of why the change in the, we call it the demographics, it's the distribution of population numbers, old versus working age versus young, why that shift is really, so important. And we certainly benched it with the biological aspects of it, and we started through here. We looked at what is setting us up for a limited time here on Earth. We looked at the theories on aging, and then also how we can modify that course of aging with significant lifestyle adaptations. Okay. That being said, we looked at diseases like cancer, and again, this is not anybody's fault. It's oftentimes a very random mutation. It can be driven by poor choices in diet and exercise. However, it is what it is, and 1 out of every 1 out of every 3 of you will get cancer in your lifetime, and certainly it's impacted you through your family and friends already. So, alrighty. We then launched into diabetes. This is like the biggest cause of disease because its trajectory is so enormous. And again, so now we're getting into this concept of these chronic diseases of aging. And I'm going there because we're going to be getting into the financial consequences of all this. Now we're going to hone in on this, on economics and finances. Okay. We looked at the big one here, that last, you look at a chronic disease, somebody can suffer for Alzheimer's for 10 years. An Alzheimer's care unit could be, anywhere from $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year just for the cost. And that doesn't even put into the equation the lost wages that you are going to experience dealing with all this. Okay. And if you can't afford these very expensive Alzheimer's care units or home health aides that would to help you, then the burden's on your shoulders. And we talked about the consequences of caregiving. It's not only the financial part, but your own health begins to decline with that burden. So anyways, that's the big setup there. Okay, so And I wanted to kind of roll that out. We're going right into, again, the economics of aging. And this first article, this is the only thing we're asking you to do is to read this article right here, and then look at a case study of 4 people in this article in terms of the background. And this is really this is the, all right, wake up call setup. That's what I would call this article right here. Okay, it is. Let's really look at this in terms of the significant financial impact that the whole aspects of this course that I've been talking about the balance between the different generations, balance between the different age groups, and the societal slash health slash economic burden. So let's get right into this, all right? And I'm going to just kind of walk you through this article. It's like everything else. I mean, you guys are adults. These are fairly complicated articles, but it's all good. So, and you'll see the very first part of this article is just like, God, you guys are like such experts, because it really goes through reviewing everything that we've been talking about. Okay. So remember early on, and we looked at, developed versus developing countries, Western versus non-Westernized countries. And we looked at this transition of having a higher percentage of older adults and how rapidly that happened. Remember, we talked about that, okay? And if it's over a very extended time course, like it was in most of Europe, over 100 years, it's a slow moving societal adaptation. When it skyrockets, like it happened in Asia, like it's happening in South America, like it's going to happen in Africa, society hasn't had time to gear up, okay? And then there are big personal, societal, financial consequences, all right? All right. So let's go right into it. Some financial consequences, okay? When we look at what's going on in countries, there's a need to sustain public spending on pensions. All right, boom. All right. So some countries, countries in Europe, okay, we call them our entitlement programs. So that's their health care and their economic insurance. We call that Social Security here in our country. It's significant, okay? They have a significant guarantee that now they're burdened with. Okay, how are you going to pay for that? How are you going to pay for that? You're going to pay for that by hopefully investing. The government invests their money well and get the return on the investment to fund the pension and medical care system. You can limit how much you're going to have access to. So that's always been a big complaint about socialized medicine. Okay, and that it is kind of partitioned and limited. And then in terms of you're either going to reduce the actual pensions, the money people get after they retire, or you're going to increase the taxation of the working population. Okay, all right. So bottom line, is public spending on pensions and healthcare, okay, versus reducing the budget deficits of the country. It's a balancing act, So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Okay, and we see that consequently, there are a number of countries that are having to think about this, reconsider their pensions and healthcare provisions that they've guaranteed their population. Okay, because right now it accounts for 40% of all spending in these European economies. Okay, and this comes down to this gross domestic product that we're talking about. So much of the outgoing money, the minus sign from the gross domestic product, and that's the financial well-being of a country, is going towards healthcare and pensions. All right. Yeah. So they're grappling with that now. Okay. But what's going to happen is by 2050, okay, this is going to be a worldwide phenomenon. Okay, that's what we're kind of looking at here. And you look at this transition of the groups. All right, so that's the background there. Okay, you can see the distributional change, male, female. This is called an age pyramid. Okay, and we've seen stuff like this before. The fatter it is down here, the more people. All right, so we're looking down here in terms of people, and again, it's the scale. Okay, is in millions, and we see this population in millions right here. But you can see going from 2010 to 2050 that there's a lot more going on up here. It's not that we see 300, okay, down here. It's not that there's less young people, but they haven't grown either, okay? Fertility, all right? But you see significantly older people, all right? So this goes through what I was talking about. It transitions from, in this very first article, it talks about Europe, North America, Latin America, and Asia, and how this, like we discussed in the early chapters, how it's a big deal, okay, in terms of how quickly it's happening in some of these countries, and they're not ready for it, okay. And then it really, it goes down in, in terms of Europe, and they're going to, even age even further, okay? And so it goes into the European Union, okay? And again, you have to, in terms of, some of you are like, economic design and real estate development, stuff like that, something has to be figured out in terms of dealing with this, okay? Alrighty, so let's continue on. What are the drivers of this? Okay, so we know that the biggies. Okay, so we have this conventional concept. Okay, population is driven by what? People don't die as much, falling mortality rates. So yeah, so we have increasing longevity. Okay, as we see right here. Okay, and then this is then coupled with a decline in fertility that is messing with the balance, okay? So if you have, as we see over here in the figure right here, we have a lot more, people in the, say, 49 to 100 age range in millions, but the same number of people down here to shoulder the burden, sorry, of dealing with this, okay, it's got to come from somewhere. Shoulder the burden. Here's an example. All these people want a pension. Okay, in our country it's Social Security. Other countries it's it's their own version of that. It's got to come from somewhere, so you're going to shoulder the burden here through increased taxes. All right, and then there's the care burden. Okay, we used to have we come from a world of this culture of multi-generational families, and reduced fertility. You know what that means? Okay, there's fewer family members to help care for that person. All right. What's the blame? And this is kind of fun right here. And it's based on science. Okay, so people that look at populations, okay, demographers, okay, they argue that we used to have this evolutionary link between sexual activity, we did it, and to have children. Okay, and if you had sex, you were going to have kids. There wasn't any birth control around. Okay. But with modern contraception, okay, reproduction now is a function of choice and preference. All right, so people just use contraception, and out of choice, based on the cultural norm, and the cultural norm in our country is we have an extended period of development of college and grad school. Early phase in your career, and then you're like, I'm ready to have kids, and you're 37 years old. Well, good luck, okay? All righty. This is now, coming into play very quickly in Asian and European countries, of course, and they call this the low fertility trap, okay? All right, so, and then, again, here's this concept of the fact that, science, okay? People used to die. We had this epidemic, and while an incredible number of people have died from this really aggressive coronavirus, and they died from COVID-19, if it wasn't for science, it would have been 10 times as worse. Okay, so and then we can apply that same science here in terms of increase in life expectancy and life extension to cancer, diabetes, okay, kidney disease, heart disease, Alzheimer's, on and on. There's new drug just approved for Alzheimer's. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Maybe it'll work. On and on and on. Okay, so again, you look at the implications. Okay, implications become significant in terms of the economy. That's where we're here. All right. Well, look at labor markets. Okay, a lot more people retired, fewer people. Okay, that are being born, and that's a big deal. That's a big deal. Okay, and we look. Over here, again, this just shows you, the fertility rates, where in reality, we are not replacing ourselves. 2.1 and under at most developed countries. And these guys are all catching up, okay? The developing countries, okay? So we need some economic policy and political decisions, all right? And then that's going to trickle down to, individual behavior. And so, yeah, what kind of adjustments need to be made? Okay, savings behavior. So we're going to talk about this. Okay, our country is like, we're going to give you this, this safety net called Social Security, but it's not enough to survive. It's not enough to live on. All right, so you've got to change your savings behavior. All right, so you got to start investing in your long-term future. Okay. What else is on the docket? Okay, you got to work longer and be more productive. Okay, one consequence of everybody living longer, and we're going to see later on, they talk about the fact that because I waited so damn long to have kids, um, and I'm going to live longer, so this intergenerational transfer of all these assets comes at a later date. All right, and that is forcing people to do it on their own. You got to invest in your own personal capital. And that's what this is all about right here, right? So, yeah, so there's, lots and lots to discuss here in terms of what's going on. So here's the big three that they talk about, all right? So a persistent low replacement of our working population. Okay, if you create a business, there's fewer people around to be filling that labor market, okay? And that has to do with fertility and the changing age structure, increasing longevity, all right? More, so these people, as they get older, they spend less, okay? They're dependent on entitlement programs more, okay? Again, you think about this whole economic well-being, the gross domestic product, these are going in the wrong direction, okay? And then you just kind of look at the interaction of the two, okay? And so what happens then if you don't plan well is you have reduced economic growth, all right? And problems with nations financing this public welfare system, okay? So yeah, so I'm just, I'm going through this I want you to read this on your own as well, okay? So we look at this demographic deficit, okay, the balance, fewer young people, more aged people, and what that's going to do to the labor market for running businesses, okay? And you can pretty much predict, okay? Either we train older people to stay in the workplace longer, or you're going to have to look to immigration, okay, or have more kids, and that just doesn't seem like the sociological trend, okay. So we see a decline in proportion of younger people in the population, okay, and that is perceived as a harbinger, okay, predictor of reduced economic growth, whereas the proportion of older people is preserved as an economic burden, okay, through their higher requirements of pensions and health care, okay. Talked about that. It's, the healthcare costs skyrocket for chronic diseases. It's not like an infectious disease where here's a vaccination. Thanks. I'll see you in a couple of years. Chronic diseases is every single day, year in, year out for 15, 20 years. Okay. And then, the other thing that happens, young people go out and spend money and stimulate the economy. What are the older people? Older people are not as mobile, so they're not going out and spending money, not like the young people do, okay? All righty. So these are, big concerns, all right? What's going to happen when we have the future in terms of these older labor forces, okay? So now we're being expected to stay in there longer. Are people like me less productive, less innovative? Yeah, we are, And the other thing I was talking about, okay, we have lower rates of consumption, so we don't stimulate the economy as much either. I don't go out there and buy as many things, okay? I don't go out to dinner as much as you guys do. It's things like that. I might buy big ticket items. That's a whole different story, cars and things like that, all right? All righty. Um, so this again goes through kind of the layout of the land in many countries. Once again, it starts giving you numbers. The big one right here to think about. Korea is the most rapidly aging country, and it's going to move from being the third youngest country in this organization called the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, or the OECD, all right, to the second oldest after Japan in 2015, right? Just like that, boom, transition. And their economy is having to adapt, right? So this is this deficit we were talking about, okay? The economic fallout of having reduced fertility and longevity, all right? So we see in terms of millions of people right here, okay? In terms of all these nations that are part of this organization, we see there's actually a decline in younger people, but an increase in older people that were, basically dealing with the concern that we're talking about over here, okay? All righty. All right. So how do you address this? Okay. We got to do better. We have these family-friendly initiatives that are nothing but lip service. Okay. So, how about, creating a workplace incentive where women get 6 months, all right, both prenatal and then after having birth, all right, to really set things up so an environment that is conducive to childbearing. Okay. Same deal with men. Paternity leave, so you can get down there and you can help around the house, okay? The better the company, the more likely you're going to be able to roll this kind of stuff out, all right? So we need to have better, family-friendly policies so that we can get back in there and start having at least a replacement factor in terms of fertility, okay? All right, here's the other thing, okay? We got to be smart about immigration, right? We got to put the the LinkedIn account out there looking for highly skilled immigrants to come in and fulfill the needs to help drive our economy, all right? And that's a big, big political firestorm, but it's something you have to think about. Immigration can improve competitiveness and productivity through new trade and international linkages. Okay, learn a second language, my friends. Okay, learn a third. All right, and this is a big investment. Okay, big investment. All righty. We have to change the dependency ratios by working longer. All right. So remember the whole thing. You have you guys. Okay, maybe not so much now, but when you were, uh, preschool, kindergarten, all right, elementary school, high school, middle school, college, grad school, you're dependent, okay? All right, so you're not contributing to the economy, you're still going the negative way in terms of your family's gross domestic product, okay? And then you work for a long time and you are generating income and you're stimulating the economy by spending and you have tax dollars, and then you retire, all right? But I just talked about this issue, all right? So you know what? The government, businesses, everybody's going to create an atmosphere. So we're going to have people working longer, so that the older Americans, older people around the world, are not going to be a burden and dependent. So that requires um, this cohort of older people, they got to get educated, to get skilled, and stay healthy. Stay healthy, okay? Eat well, lower your stress, okay? Here, you want to stay healthy? See if I can find this, okay? Um, watch this. This is a really cool thing to look into. So, blue zone principles. I was just looking it up, okay? And so these blue zones are these areas or longevity. We're going to reverse engineer longevity so that I can work forever. What am I going to do? I'm going to exercise and move naturally. I'm going to always re-educate myself, create this sense of purpose. I'm going to reduce my stress whenever I can. I'm going to eat prudently. Don't do the Cheesecake Factory thing. Eat 80% of what you need on a daily basis. Mostly plants. I'm going to have 2 glasses of wine a night, okay, because it reduces your stress. And importantly, you're going to surround yourself with the right tribe. And within that tribe, you always remember that these are the most important people in your life, okay? This sense of belonging to tribe is huge, 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 huge. All right, guys. Cool. So that's how we're going to have healthy work populations. All righty. So now I just want to break this down, okay? In terms of this healthy life expectancy, all right? And how socioeconomic it is. All right, so we have lower income, lower middle income, upper middle income, higher income. Okay, we see that the higher the income, the higher the life expectancy at birth. See this dark blue, boop, 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 boop. And also the access to so many things, great diet, opportunity to exercise. So healthy life expectancy. It's also going up right here, okay? So this is comparing 2000 to 2012, 2000, 2012. And yes, improvements were being made across the board. And thankfully, the biggest improvements are in the lower socioeconomic groups, okay? But still, there is definitely an income advantage, okay? All right, that healthy life expectancy, we're going to postpone frailty, disability, less of a negative drain on your personal GDP as well as our country's gross domestic product. Okay, awesome. All righty. The other thing that's happening here is we have to deal with this delayed life transitions. Okay, you guys are being educated longer. You're not getting married. If you are having kids, you're having one. That's a whole socioeconomic thing that has to be looked at. Okay, as a consequence, okay, your kids are staying home, so less likely to have empty nest syndrome. Okay, maybe have more multi-generation households like we do right now. And then what's happening is when we have people living longer and people waiting longer to get, basically to launch, get their act together, there's going to be I have to have a frank discussion about fairness between generations, some type of contract that how we're going to solve this. Okay, we've ruined the housing market for you guys. Okay, so transfer of wealth, something has to be discussed about that. Okay. Awesome. So really, really cool. And here's your overview right there. All right. So I hope you guys like that background. Okay. I love that article. It's thick, but I love it. Okay. Then we go in here and we can look at 3 case studies. Okay. And so the background is here is a lot of what I talked about. Okay. So they start with Bob Orozco. Okay. Lives in my city down here in Laguna Niguel, California. And again, we're looking at, the shift in terms of working age population. He's unique. He's still working at 89. Okay. And it says right here about 1 in 4 adults age 65 and older is now in the workforce. That's a big change. Okay. And this number is expected to increase. All right. Because first of all, Social Security is not going to cover it. So you have to have another source of income. Working income is a great one. If you're lucky enough to have invested your money, then you have the investments coming off, and that's what's discussed right here. We're going to get into that. So if you work for a good company, there's a 401k. If not, then you're going to have to do your own individual retirement accounts. All right. And yeah, so they're volatile. They're in the recession, but no big deal. Okay. All right, so this shows you right here, baby boomers like myself, okay? I have a median savings of a little over 150,000. That's middle of the road, all right? And that's supposed to get me through 30-year retirement. So it's and that savings is inclusive of a lot of things, okay? It's not just my B of A account and my Fidelity account. It can be other things, okay? Some people maybe through their real estate investments. It's a total package, okay? All righty. So like we went in here and you honed in on people. So luckily, this guy Bob has the kind of job. It's not high paying. He works at the YMCA. He has for 30 years, but it allows him to stay engaged, okay? All right? So like we were seeing over here, he has purpose, all right, which is a big thing. He has income, he's happy with what he's doing, and that then is going to increase his healthy life, all right? And study after study has shown that, okay? Nearly a quarter of American workers say they don't think they'll retire, even though if you look at that, more than a third of them stop working earlier than planned, right? All right, why does that happen? So you don't want to retire, but you're forced into it. Why is that? Well, things happen, health setbacks, that's where you gotta live right. We can have a major hit to the economy like we had this last year. And then, there is, do we have what it takes to keep that business rolling? All right. All right. That's one example. All right. Here's another example. Okay. This is Kylie Cohen right here. She's 65 years old. Okay. TV copywriter for a while, children's librarian. Okay. Um, Divorced, raised 2 children. She has nothing but Social Security and food stamps that she has to rely on. Okay. Um, yeah, when you look at her situation, people like her, they're looking for affordable housing, which is hard to come by. Luckily, we do have some in the LA area. She talks about that 79% of her income goes for rent. That means 21% leaves her $245 a month. I went and did the math on that. You know what that means? That means her Social Security income is about 1,700 a month, a little under 1,700 a month. That's all she has to live on. Okay, in a city like LA. Okay. Here's another person. Okay, Veronica Bryant in the same situation. Okay. Yeah, so she has coming into Brian has little money coming in from retirement accounts. Okay. Again, most of her income is for rent, just like the previous person. She's divorced, single mother. It makes it a lot harder. Staying married it makes it a lot easier. Okay, and yeah, it's very difficult for these two. And luckily, they have found this affordable housing, but it's very difficult. The other trajectory they talk about here is retiring with purpose, and that's volunteer work. Okay, and it does get you back to this purpose concept over here, to stay active, stay engaged. Okay, and in this particular case, Carrie Eagles, okay, she had enough income and support, so now she can then give back to the community, and that's what this is all about right here. And we look at the work of all the volunteers. That has an economic stimulus value to our country of about $73 billion. Okay, super cool. So it's a great look into what's going on. Okay, guys, so that's the background on today's stuff. Then we want you to go into a discussion right here and look at different work experience, okay, how that affects one's aging. Okay, so we look at socioeconomics, you look at stress, you look at Power 9, like I was talking about here, all these different things, okay? How is that, affecting you? So we see that joblessness, watch this video, think about how it accelerates aging from the stress that you people experience, okay? We see how hard it is for older aging Americans to find employment, okay? And high employment is due to lack of demand, not lack of skills or education. So this is an older video. Maybe things will change right now, but still the same basic principles apply. So I know you guys are a lot of business majors here, so I want you to watch these videos. Consider your discussion as indicated up above. Point out how low-paying job may not give individuals economic security. They need to work longer and may never be able to retire. Okay, maybe their low-paying job translated into some really crappy health decisions. They don't have enough money to get good food. They can't exercise. Okay, letting healthcare coverage lapse. All these kind of things like this. Okay, so then I want you to speak to your life experience, someone you may know who may have had difficulty in terms of securing economic security and how that impacts their health. That's the goal, my friends. All right, so that's it for this part of this week. These are great resources, guys. I know a lot of you guys are going to be business majors and econ majors and are those majors, and you can apply that professionally. These are great resources that you guys should download and consider. All right. Okay, guys. Peace. I'm going to do another video in a sec. and we'll see you then.